Good afternoon. Today is May 16th, and you are listening to the live feed of the Indigified podcast, sponsored by the Great Plains Action Society, right here on KWTN 100.9 FM, Allen, Nebraska, the Big Voice Radio, official radio station of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska. As always, all opinions shared are not a reflection of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska, the Big Voice Radio station, or the Great Plains Action Society.
Dang, that sounded really good. I was like, okay.
I've been practicing at home.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't practice at home. That would be crazy.
Just in your mirror.
Just talking to Saint. I'm like, okay, baby, calm me down. 1, 2, 3.
How are you doing today?
I'm good today.
Good?
I am, yeah. I'm good today.
Right on.
Sorry, I was trying to share the...
Trying to multitask?
Yeah, I'm trying to multitask. I'm not good at it.
Totally understand that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Today's topic today, we're talking about sobriety. But before we get into that, let's talk about our mental health. So we do a mental health check-in. I don't know if maybe you have one of those cool icebreaker questions.
I know, right? We haven't done an icebreaker since last season. Hold on, let me find one. Okay. Mental health check-in. So yesterday I definitely had like a whole breakdown. And the good thing about having breakdowns is being able to reflect and have like these epiphanies, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I keep on having the same epiphany, so I know better, but I just suck at setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. I suck at enforcing boundaries. I just expect people to know what I need from them, to meet my expectations without actually communicating them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just like a trauma response in its own, because I don't want conflict, so therefore I don't want to have to be like, hey, you did this and I didn't like it. No, I just want you to know that I wouldn't like it, and just don't do it.
Well, maybe that's something that we can start off with is what is a trauma response for those that don't know what a trauma response is?
So a trauma response is not necessarily one thing, and trauma responses look different depending on the trauma that you've endured and where you are in like your healing journey from that trauma or those traumas. So a trauma response is just it's kind of like an unconscious response to things that you've been through. So like I'm talking about setting boundaries. I'm not dealing with like an abuser where I'm like, oh, I can't set boundaries because I'm afraid of conflict. No, I'm dealing with friends and siblings and people that I get along with great, but because of past trauma, I still have this underlying fear when it comes to confrontation with loved ones. Like I don't want them to reject me. I don't want them to push me away.
Okay.
And then I have this, I always call it crazy, right? It's not crazy. It's part of my life. But I have this crazy trauma response where when people like smack their lips or suck their teeth, you know, like that noise, I instantly am like, what's wrong?
Really?
And I instantly start walking on eggshells. Yes, so I had, for those of y'all that don't know, I was married before, and it was just a very abusive relationship that I was in. And that was my warning, is that if he smacked his lips or like made that sucking teeth sound, I don't even know what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. I knew by the end of the day that my house was going to be in shambles. I knew by the end of the day that I was going to go through a physical hurt and emotional hurt. And so, I got to breathe.
Yeah, okay. No, take time to breathe. This is exactly why we're having this conversation.
So I would, as soon as that would happen, it was like my whole day became dedicated to, okay, something's wrong, but you're not going to tell me what's wrong until you've let all this anger build up into a rage. And then by then you bring it up. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see what you're seeing from your perception, and I'm not able to. And then there would just be this huge explode. So to this day, I have been separated from him for 2 years in April. To this day, when someone makes one of those noises, I instantly am on eggshells and I'm like, what's wrong? What can I do? What did I do? I'll start blaming myself. And it's like I'm so far from that trauma and I don't even think about him anymore. Like, he's not a factor in my life. But because that was there and it was relevant for so long, it still lives in me that if someone does that, something's wrong and I'm going to get blamed for it. So yeah, so that's a trauma response. But trauma responses come in all different forms.
Correct.
Yeah.
Man, now I'm trying to think about things that I've learned, in my past, and it's kind of, it's scary, but also it's good to talk about those trauma responses as a way of, like, I don't know, it's really, I feel like it's ugly, but also it's empowering too, to kind of work through those. Those are, I just have to take a moment there, because now I'm thinking about all the trauma responses that I don't know about, that I do,
and sometimes
unconsciously do.
Yeah. And sometimes a trauma response isn't even something that you associate with a trauma. It could just be something like the way you grew up, right? Like maybe a way that your mom mothered you. Maybe you don't see it as being traumatic, right? Because trauma responses are not always tied to these huge, super hurtful traumas. Sometimes it's just from experiences. Yeah. And there can just, being afraid of, saying the wrong thing or feeling like you can't be yourself. Those are still trauma responses in a sense.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I feel like I have struggled so much with social anxiety, and it always stems back to, I used to be really like outgoing and like extroverted in high school, but then I started getting in trouble, but also there's a reason why
there's always a reason why. So
I think now that I'm growing into my own womanhood, if you will, that a lot of that I do think about is like, okay, I know that I struggle with social anxiety, but also I need to address that, or I feel like I need to address that, because I feel like the negative self-talk comes in and it's like, nobody wants you around, or nobody's going to notice you, or you're not important enough. And so it's stemming back from the high school era and what happened in my life.
Right.
And, it does affect me, kind of as a mother, as I'm mothering my children. I don't want them to feel like that. I want them to be appreciated and welcomed in their own home and space and things like that. So, but yeah, thank you for talking about what a trauma response is, just in case somebody didn't know what a trauma response is. So, yeah.
Makes sense. And then social anxiety. I know we're still on like our mental health check-in.
Yeah.
We'll just keep the conversation going. Social anxiety, I definitely had that when I came back to Sioux City and restarted my life. And I know for everybody it's different, but for me, exposure therapy is what I needed to get out of that social anxiety. Do I still have some? Yeah, there'll be times where I have things to do, especially like if I have to speak, I'm like freaking out and I'm like, oh no, but that's so normal. But
that's crazy, because you're really good at public speaking and speaking in general. I struggle all the time. If you will. So
okay. So the whole reason I'm good at like not saying and like leaving dead air is I worked at a call center for 3 years. That was my first job. And then public speaking, I'm good at that in general because I should have been an English major. I still don't know why I wasn't. Really, it's because what was I going to do with it? I did not want to be an English teacher. And then I took public speaking in college, and I had so much fun with it because we incorporated debate too. And, I like to argue. I love a good healthy argument. But yeah, so I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I do experience social anxiety, especially when I have to like speak in front of a group of people. Like, I don't have anxiety here. When we first started this show, girl, you have no idea. I was freaking out on the
over
inside.
here just to do the music.
I know we've all got it down pat now. But yeah, in the beginning, I was like so scared. Like I would be kind of like shaking.
Yeah.
But yeah. Just like general social anxiety when I had first moved back and I was out of that environment. I was allowed to do as I pleased and to go places and stuff like that. It was so weird in the beginning, but that's also what made me push myself to be more out there and to be more social, because I had social anxiety as a trauma response. I was never socially awkward. I mean, you ask some of the aunties around here, they'll tell you when I was like this big, I was real bashful at the powwow grounds or the softball fields. But other than, you know, being a toddler that's like shy, I've never been a shy person. I've never been socially awkward. I never had social anxiety. So when I had realized that that's what I was experiencing, I was like, oh no. Oh, no. You're not about to run my life like this. I'm about to get out here. I'm going to make new friends. I'm going to talk to people. Cool. Yeah, so shout out to my trauma responses.
Breaking those curses.
Yeah.
No.
But,
cool.
So this conversation started on a mental health check-in. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm actually very busy, and I've been trying to balance the self-care amongst all the events that we're doing at Great Plains Action Society. So we were in Davenport, Iowa over the weekend, and it was for the Mississippi River Summit. And so we had New Orleans natives and organizers come up from New Orleans. And basically this was, I think, the first time that this has happened, where grassroots organizations come together to talk about, you know, giving rights of nature to the Mississippi River. And that's so crucial that it was in Davenport, because Iowa is I think the biggest contributor to the dead zone. And so that trickles down and it affects them. And so it was just really nice to be in community with those folks, because this is the first time that this has really happened.
Right.
And so but also too, just trying to, again, just balance work with self-care, and then also just family matters that are going on. And I'm just trying to, you know, just be in a positive space. And I feel like there are so many positive things in my life going on right now, and I'm just really grateful. And yeah, I just a lot of things that have been breaking as far as like generational curses, and it just feels good. I feel good. Like,
that's an empowering thing.
It is. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I helped do this, or I'm doing this to help my kids, or, you know, so it's really nice. And I, for once, feel like, I don't know, like this is who I'm truly supposed to be. And just to kind of talk about, I know this is totally off subject too, but you know, I've been watching Dear Mama, right?
Oh, yeah. I seen you talk about it on Facebook.
Yes, and I was like, that's one of the last episodes. Obviously, Afeni was talking about when Tupac had died, and how much, you know, pain he was in while he was living this life.
Right.
But she mentioned that there are two dates to keep in mind, and that is the day you're born and the day you leave. And in between that time, it's not about the material possessions. It's not about the car, the house, the jewelry. It's kind of, you know, what are you leaving behind? What is your legacy that you're leaving behind that people can, you know, talk about and, you know, share with other people and positively impact, you know, those people. So I think that kind of just really was something that I thought about over the weekend. And, you know, it was Mother's Day too. So I don't know, like it just put me in a very different state of mind where I'm like, I'm ready to burn this all down with
Yes.
a smile on my face and positively impact other people to burn it all down.
Right.
So.
And not be stressed out at all.
Right. So yeah, that's my mental health check-in. Yep.
What did Drake say? I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Cue that music. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Can we get a cut in?
Then our live stream goes down.
Right. Copyright infringement.
Right.
Like, dang, Drake, you work fast. Yeah, no, I am. I'm super proud of you. Perspective is everything. Yeah, so today's episode is about sobriety.
Yes.
And to caddy off of sobriety, trauma in general, and how trauma contributes, or how trauma can be noted as the gateway drug to sobriety or to addiction. So of course we do have to say, take care of yourself during the episode, take care of yourself after. I scheduled therapy for after this episode, because I know this will probably be one of my toughest episodes, but it'll definitely be my most vulnerable episode. Like, I was looking at all of our topics for the rest of season 2, and then just our brainstorming of topics in general. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so this is that episode for me. So it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation.
But I love that we can brainstorm together, and even when we know it's going to be something that is where we're going to be vulnerable about, that we still talk about it, because I feel like it's not being necessarily a role model, it's always being about a real model,
right?
Being real and being able to come up into these spaces and just be honest and unapologetic about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because I can't be anything else besides me,
right?
That's all I'm capable of doing. So
yep
yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
So
give me a question or something. Let's jump right into this. Oh, wait, we were going to do an icebreaker.
Oh, okay. Do an icebreaker, and I'll think of the question, the leading question.
Icebreaker, why are our tongues blue today? This episode is brought to you. Because I'm always going to have a big back. That's been so stuck in my head today. Facebook with the big back stuff. I can't.
So, yes.
Hopefully you can't see that our tongues are blue, but Trisha decided to bring in a classroom treat today.
Classroom treat.
And it was Airheads. So,
yeah, so if you're like, what? Tongues. Why is their tongue blue?
I know. I'm like, are my teeth blue or no? I hope they're white. It's the lighting, actually, because we have blue lights. So, okay. I don't know. I can't think of a good icebreaker.
I have one.
Okay.
Have you read any good books lately? Like, what's the last good book that you have read?
So I always carry 3 books with me. So I'm a reader. I love me a good book. So I always carry 1 poetry book. And right now I have Clarity and Connection. And maybe that's a Young Pueblo book, but maybe not. I'll comment. I will comment my book titles and my author. I am reading The Peace That Lives Within. Oh, I don't ever know the titles or the authors. No, I don't think that's it. I think it's like creating peace within yourself and your community. And that's by a monk who I believe he passed away in like the past couple years. He's so good. His books are so good. I'll have to let you read that one because it's so good. And then Braiding Sweetgrass.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. I'm actually very interested in reading that.
It's such a good book. So I'm rereading it for the second time. It's one of my favorites.
I'll have to definitely check that out.
Yeah. But I have a whole bookshelf, girl. You ever need to borrow a book, let me know. I got a whole bunch of them.
The last time I came into Moon, I had this book picked out and I totally forgot it.
You left it. Yeah, and I think it was like something that maybe you left it like unconsciously on purpose because wasn't it like some kind of like articles from like Thomas Jefferson or something.
Oh yeah, there
like
was
that.
one with the Thomas Jefferson one, but there was another one that was talking about Black liberation, I believe.
Oh yes,
And
yes,
I was
yes.
like, I want to read that. So
yes.
I want
Also, Moon always accepts book donations.
Yes.
I give them out like nothing. So
yes.
if you got good books that are just taking up space and catching dust.
Got
Let me
allergies,
know.
no.
Right. If your allergies are acting up and you got a whole bunch of books in your house, holla at me. I'll take them. I will probably read them first, but I like to read them. And then when I have clients that come in or people that are just shopping the retail area, because, you know, I have them on those lower shelves of my retail shelves. Whenever people ask for them, I just feel like a book is the perfect gift.
Yes.
Such a, like, you're giving knowledge and you're giving insight. So I'm always giving out books.
Yep.
Hopefully I have like 12 people be like, I have some books. And I'll be like, yes. You don't even have to get me nothing for Christmas. This is great. Please still get me something for my birthday though.
I like that.
Yeah. What about you? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, so the last thing that I read was by Rachel Ricketts, and it was Do Better. And it was basically just unapologetically coming from the perspective of a trans, or I think she's queer, a queer Black woman. And the whole book itself is just very transformative, and it lays it out. So it talks about white privilege, it talks about the white gaze, it talks about whiteness in general, and just how her lived experiences, she's always had to kind of filter herself or be like the good Black woman and not the hostile, angry Black woman. And she does mention like how Black and Indigenous and especially queer and trans folks from those communities are often just ignored. They're, you know, harmed. And yeah, it was just a really good read. And I definitely highly recommend it to anybody to read it. It's got little exercises in it too, where it challenges you to think about those things, but also like, you know, to do like journaling too as well. So it was a very powerful book, and I'm hoping that she has more.
Right.
Yeah, because it was just a really great read, and I think that's why when I seen, you know, the book at your place, I was like, oh, I definitely like want to learn more about Black liberation. I always talk about Indigenous sovereignty and, you know, building power in our own communities, but also I want to know about Black liberation and how we can achieve that and how to show up for each other. So
as a BIPOC community in entirety. Well, we may need to do a book swap.
Yeah,
because that sounds like something I would like to
book
read.
club. No, I'm just
right.
like,
except for
like
reading,
Oprah. Oprah has a book club.
Except for reading different books, but we've read them before, so it's like, what chapter you on, girl? Are you actually reading it? Right, study guides, pop quiz.
Right. I like that.
That's funny.
Another book too, though. What was it? It's by Eckhart Tolle.
The Power of Now.
Yes. So I started that, but then I, you know, obviously I started reading Do Better. But yes, I've been reading Eckhart Tolle too as well.
He has great YouTube videos too.
Yes.
Yeah, because The Power of Now is like the teal blue cover, and then A New Earth is the orange one, which I think A New Earth was the first one, and then The Power of Now came after. But Eckhart Tolle is magnificent.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's just so like,
yes,
you know.
And it's crazy because I've been on like this healing journey for a long time. I was on my healing journey when I was going through new traumas and new experiences, but obviously I had to go through them for a reason. And I'm big on like, I think my reasoning of everything I've gone through is just to be who I am today and to be able to like look back and be like, hey, I've been through this.
Yep.
You know, hey, you're going through this right now. I've been through it before. It's going to be okay. Like, you're going to get through it. You just have to go through it. But so I've always been a reader, and even in like high school, which is funny because the topic today is sobriety. And so I was a young addict. And one of my very first self-help books was a book on teenagers and addiction. And it was like that had ignited something for me. So now, like, I don't read is it fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Like Twilight.
When I think about nonfiction, is like no lie. It's no lie. That's how I think about it. And then fiction is like all lies.
Okay, yeah. So I haven't read fiction books since like middle school when all the Harry Potters came out. And so I had got A New Earth gifted to me from my sister Kimberly in like, when did I get married? Like 2016. So I think I got it like 2018. Mm-hmm. I opened that book so many times and I could not read it. Like I was just, I don't want to say intellectually I wasn't there, but mentally it was like I could not comprehend the words on the pages. And I've been reading like, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I was that kid that was like reading at like college level in like 8th grade. I'm a good reader.
I believe it. No.
Yeah. You know, shout out to that almost being an English major. But I just like, and I used to get frustrated because I would be like, I will read a whole chapter and then I'll look back and it's like I absorbed none of it.
Yep.
Nothing.
Been
like
there.
I could pronounce all the words on the page. I understand what the sentences are saying, but I would comprehend nothing. None of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I would get frustrated because then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take a break from this book and I'm going to focus on this book. Mm-hmm. And I would go back to it and I would read that same chapter again. And I would be like, how many times am I going to have to read this one chapter before I actually get something from the book? So then it was like I almost started resenting Eckhart Tolle. Because I was like, why are you doing this to me? But so I read it again after I had left that environment. So I think I finally made it through maybe like 6 months ago for the first time. And so now I use it as like a intuitive book where I'll open it and whatever page I open it to, I'll read like that paragraph or I'll read that page or I'll read until I'm like, okay, I can stop reading. Like I got the message. Yeah. His books are so good for that. Yeah. And it's like somehow I always open up to like, well, because the whole book is amazing and insightful, but I'll end up opening up to an area that I needed in that moment. So I do. I love books. We should put together a reading list.
Oh, we should. Ooh. No.
Ooh, project. Like we don't have enough of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into today's discussion. So I know we're going to get to this vulnerable spot. So again, for everyone listening in, please take care of yourself before, during, and after, and take the necessary steps to self-care. So I guess my question today for you is, what has been your journey of sobriety?
What has
like what is I know
long pause. Social anxiety, I just froze. Okay, so my journey with sobriety has been very up and down. So for one, I celebrated being clean off methamphetamines, cocaine, prescription pills for 12 years yesterday.
And that is amazing.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I know. And I'm like, I'm supposed to celebrate it. And usually I'm like so celebratory about it. And I'm like, I like to post pictures from when I was in my addiction to like current pictures and be like, you know, like we do recover. But
say that part again.
We do recover.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say it one more time.
We do recover.
Okay.
But then I have like this huge but. So December 18th of 2022, I celebrated being sober, like being clean from everything and anything, including alcohol. So I had celebrated my 2 years on that date, and the next day I broke my sobriety. So that was really hard, and it's still kind of hard, and I told myself I wasn't going to cry, but now I feel like I'm going to cry.
Let it out, because that's a part of the whole journey of, you know, having these conversations and being real with yourself.
And it's hard because I guess I'm not so much disappointed in myself for breaking my sobriety. So to be clear, I broke my sobriety with alcohol. I didn't break my sobriety with any drugs or anything like that. I've maintained being clean off of drugs for 12 years, and I'm super proud of myself for that. But I think I felt more disappointed in myself for breaking my sobriety with alcohol because I was so public with being sober from alcohol that I was like, oh, like, you know, everybody's going to hate me. Yeah, well, hello. There's that addict mentality, okay? I took a back step. Now people are going to push me away. People are going to reject me. People are going to look at me as being, like, lesser. But my biggest disappointment in myself is that I had considered breaking my sobriety for a couple months before I had celebrated my 2 years. But I had considered it from a place of I never had an alcoholism issue. I quit drinking because I was in an abusive relationship, and I was using alcohol as like a way to numb out what I was going through so I could still tolerate it. So I wasn't getting like drunk. I would, stuff would happen and I hated being there. And so I would drink like a glass of wine to take the edge off. And so when I had realized that things were never going to change, I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink a glass of wine after a fight because I need to feel it. I need to feel everything I'm going through. I can't have any type of dependency on anything other than here I am. This is what's happening. What am I going to do? So I had quit drinking and I left in April. So that's 5 months. I left 5 months after I quit. And then I just maintained it because I didn't see the point in me drinking. And then I had started playing with the idea of like, oh, well, I'm young and I never had an alcoholism issue per se. I can still maintain my sobriety with the drugs that I did have an issue with. But the day that I broke my sobriety, I didn't break it because I was at like a birthday party or I was out doing something having fun. I broke it because I was so stressed out and I was so overwhelmed and I was upset and it just felt like the world was crashing down on me. So I think I'm still disappointed in myself for that, because if I would have broke it in a manner where I was just like, yeah, I just don't want that for me anymore. Like this is something that I can enjoy and I can do it from a healthy place. Then I'd be like, yeah, I broke my sobriety, but I don't encourage anybody else to do the same. But I still have like this underlying hurt because I'm like, okay, I put myself in those situations to be overwhelmed and stressed out and feel like this was my only escape. And that sucks. So yeah. But so that's, I don't know. I guess that's the part where I have to be really vulnerable because I'm still processing those emotions and I'm not back on the red road from then. But perspective, right? So I still have to reflect and I still have to be super thankful for my resiliency and my strength because I started using drugs at 13 years old. And by the time I was 16, I was addicted to meth and I was a high school dropout. I would live at like homies' houses for like 2-3 weeks. And then I would go home for like 3 days and then I would be gone again. And it was just like a never ending cycle for almost 3 years. So I still have to be grateful for that because that was my rock bottom. That was a terrible time. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you are able to share some of your journey with us. And, me being me, like to you, I would never judge you. I would never hold that over your head. You are amazing, and you're doing a lot of amazing things in our community. And just to be gentle with yourself, you know, not everybody is perfect. And
right.
I see a lot of people that judge others, and especially people that are in their own journey of like recovery, that tend to do that. And it's like, you can't do that, you know, like you were there once too. And, you know, it's not easy. It's never an easy path to take. And so, my journey of sobriety, man, have you ever seen those like TikToks where like this girl's like in a cornfield and they're like, you know, I was supposed to be at a sleepover, but really I'm in a cornfield passed out, or like the loud music in the car. Like that was literally my adolescence, is like, you know, just partying.
Oh, I know what you're talking about
Yeah.
now. Like we're the girls in the car and it's like,
Yeah, it's
16-year-old me is supposed to be spending the night at my best friend's house, but I'm in the car. Yeah.
That was totally me. And, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I don't even know how I held a job, because like I would roll up in the next morning, like hours after, and still go to my job and be able to like go through the next day. But as I've gotten older, and in college was a big like phase, I guess, or I don't know, like a stage in my life where like it was celebrated, you know, like it's a college town, and, you know, yay, let's go drinking, you know, whatever.
Right.
But also too, drinking really kind of academically, like it hindered my academics because I was so hungover the next day, or,
right,
you know, just instead of doing homework, you know, I went out and partied. And, you know, at that time too, being a single mom and, you know, not knowing, you know, just going through postpartum depression too as well, and not knowing what that was, and trying to masking that with alcoholism. It was, now I can look back on that and be like, wow, I don't even know how I got through that stage of my life without, you know, without anybody helping me or like pointing that out to me.
right.
So yeah, it's something that's really hard to talk about, because it obviously was not something that is celebrated, and that's something that I want to tell people about. But also I tell people about that because, you know, it has shaped me. It has, you know, my lived experiences, whether I was in a very dark time of my life or a really good time of my life, it all shaped me to be who I am today.
Right.
So I'm not perfect either. So I ended up drinking over the weekend, and it was, you know, just, and I hadn't drank since I think September-ish. And, you know, and that was something to, and it reminded me too. So this weekend, you know, I had a few drinks and, you know, called it a night. But also there was other people there that also struggle with alcoholism, and I could tell that it affected them. And so my thing was like, okay, and then things happened, and I won't, you know, that's for that person to share, and, you know, whatever. But what I do also affects other people too as well. And I know that it shouldn't be tied, like what I do shouldn't necessarily be tied to someone else, or, you know, I shouldn't have that guilt. But I also would like to be a person where people can, you know, just hang out with and not feel like they're peer pressured or anything like that. So, but I know like sobriety is a battle. It's a battle of change, and it is a battle of comfortableness. It is a battle of peer pressure sometimes. So, but I think I was quickly reminded over that, you know, just having a few drinks, you know, Friday night, the next morning or the next day was kind of hard on me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like,
right.
I just spent all this unnecessary money where it could have been, you know, utilized this way. I would feel so much better. Not to say that, you know, I couldn't get through my day, but I would feel so much better. I'd feel myself. And I think that period of sobriety for me, it was good because like I just could get up every day and go about my day, and, you know, I wouldn't have to necessarily worry about, you know, being hungover, having the migraines or anything like that. And I think as I got older too, you know, college was basically just kind of the time of the, I was living the best time of my life, if you will. But as I got older, my body can't take it.
Right.
Like literally it cannot take it. Like I used to be able, obviously when I was, you know, 15, 16, that my body could take it, but
you would metabolize it faster. You had a faster metabolism.
And then now if I have a drink now, then it's like, oh no, like I need to schedule like 2 days off, and like, you know, like I need the Tylenol and this and that. And really honestly, I'm just like, I just don't have time for it. You know, like I am needed in so many different spaces, and I'd rather, you know, just not have that hangover feeling, and be in my best mind to be able to help other people, and that's not to say, like I said, I don't judge anybody, you know, like you know, if you are struggling with sobriety or whether you're not, like I see you as a person, and you know, with a heart and feelings and emotions, and you know, I don't pass judgment on people. Right. You know, I try to be there for everybody in the best way that I can. And then my best way to me is in a sober mind. So, yeah, it's been hard though. I mean, like, cause you know, it's like hot girl summer, like, right. Let's go out and let's do this, or let's cook out. And, you know, like some of the times it rolls with, the territory of like having drinks and, you know, whatever extracurricular activities. Right. But again, yeah, it's just my version of my best self that I can give to people is being sober and being able to make sound decisions without being like hindered by being hungover or whatever. So right. That's just me substance. Though. Yeah. So
no, absolutely. I agree. I definitely agree. I broke my sobriety, and I'm not just like, you know, out here and I'm like, I'm gonna drink all the time. No, right? No, like, I literally go out once or twice, like every 3 months. I only go out for like birthday parties and stuff like that, and I'll still have like my nights where it just isn't attractive to me, right. Or like I'm really big on gut feelings or like the instinct. So if something tells me like, no, girl, have you a water night, a pineapple juice night, then I'll do that and I'll acknowledge that. But I think one of the biggest things to acknowledge when it comes to addiction is like, you know, when we were growing up and we went through like the DARE program in like 5th grade and like Red Ribbon Week and stuff like that, they would always tell us that like smoking marijuana is the gateway drug to, you know, being all methed out and stuff, like, but I really truly believe that the biggest gateway drug to addiction is trauma. It's the stuff that we go through that makes us want to escape our mind. And it's almost wild because I had met, I'm just about to call her my relative, so she's actually one of my relatives' kids' mom, so still one of my relatives. So I had met her recently, and she's not in like a good situation, but so she was talking to me about her addiction, and here I was like, yeah, you know, the gateway drug to addiction is trauma. And she was like, yeah, but I don't have any. And that was the first time in my entire life that I had met someone who is an addict solely based off their peer group.
Really?
First time. I've never met someone that could sit there and say, my parents were great to me and I had a great upbringing and, you know, really my life was perfect. I just chose the wrong friends. And my heart was so broken for her, because I was like, you put yourself into this lifestyle where the majority of us that are a part of that lifestyle, we've been through so much hurtful stuff. And so we put ourselves into this lifestyle to try to escape it, but we end up putting ourselves through more trauma. And now you're going through trauma, unnecessary trauma.
Dang.
And like, yeah, I cried and I was like, I'm so sorry, you know. And she was talking about like her sober journey, because she'll she'll get sober and she'll do really good. And she has this time estimate of 6 months, and she acknowledges it.
Mm-hmm.
She'll get sober and 6 months will go by and she'll relapse.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll get tired of it, and then she'll get sober and 6 months will go by and she'll relapse. And so she's like stuck in this cycle right now. And so, you know, tobacco down for her, because she deserves to see the other side and to see it long term, not just for 6 months. Because if you imagine what you can do in 6 months, imagine what you can do in a year. Imagine what you can do in 2 years. Imagine what you can do in 12 years. And then I have my mentors that are 20 years, 30 years, you know.
What is it? I always hear that when people, most cases is like when people do begin to sober up, a lot of positive things come into their life. And that's not to say like there's no negative, but a lot of great opportunities actually come about when people become sober. And I know someone that's happened. He was like a homeless veteran and, you know, had a gambling addiction plus all the other, you know, addictions that came with that. But as soon as he started his sobriety journey, it's just like all of these things had just came to him. And I thought that was really cool. And that's not to say like everybody's journey is going to be like that, because it's not.
But I mean, essentially it is, because once you take yourself out of those environments and out of that mentality of being an addict, you're gonna see things differently, and you're not blocking your own blessings. You know what I mean? You're making better choices for yourself. With better choices come better opportunities. And that's just, I don't know, physics, philosophy, I don't know, it's something, but you know, or karma. You put out good, good comes back. Whatever you put out returns to you. So if you're not living right and you're engaging in all these things that we're not supposed to engage in, whether, you know, you want to go at it from like a biblical 12-step program type of viewpoint, or just karmic laws, or
the tradition ways.
Yeah, I was going to say, or just spiritual awareness of self. That lifestyle is not the lifestyle for us. So, yeah.
What about like addiction, as far as like sexual addiction, or like things that are not like substance, so to speak?
So, I don't know why I struggle with that. So, I've been an addict since I was born. I was born addicted to cocaine. My mother is an addict. She is still an addict. That's just not something that seems to change. And when it does change, it doesn't change for very long. But as one of her children, I've accepted that, and I love her for who she is. But that's a whole nother conversation. But being that I was born an addict, there was this time, what did I get in trouble for? I got in trouble for something, and I was put in like outpatient treatment. And the lady had told me, because I was like 14 at the time, like this was like the beginning of everything. Like I didn't see myself as an addict. I was just like, I'm just a party girl.
Right. Just a 14-year-old girl. Like,
right. I'm just 14 having fun. But so she was like, well, the fact that you were born addicted to drugs already makes you so much more susceptible to becoming an addict. And I was like, oh, you don't have nothing to worry about. Woo, fast forward. I was back in treatment. I'm sure she wanted to be like, told you so, but you know, you can't do that. But being in counseling and, you know, unpacking all of this trauma, and, you know, my addiction carries a lot of trauma for me, because it's trauma that I implemented on myself versus trauma that other people caused to me. But so we had like talked about that, like hypersexuality, and just like addiction in general. Like I don't go to the casinos. I don't gamble. I don't gamble because I am an addict. And I'm like, let me hit big.
Just one time.
Just one time. And I'm going to steady be talking about, let me hit big just one time for who knows how long before I'm like, okay, I have a gambling addiction. So I feel like being addicted to anything makes you a bigger risk for other addictions. But, you know, like, I wish I understood. I wish there was a way for doctors or whoever, or just us in general, to be able to look at each other and be like, okay, you're going to be an addict. You have the chemical makeup of an addict. Here are the things you should watch out for. Food, you know, stuff that fits into like sexual genres, the casino, drugs, alcohol, shopping. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I am like a shopping addict.
Like emotional buyer?
Yeah. So like when I got sober,
Same here. No.
yeah, when I got sober, now when I have like those hard moments where like in the past I'd be like, oh, I got to numb myself out. Now I'm like, all right, I'm about to go shopping. Except I'm very humble and I go to like Five Below and Dollar Tree. I try not to blow a bag, but
also too though, like you feel like you get more, like I don't know, like Dollar Tree. And
I love the Dollar Tree.
Yeah, I'm gonna ball out, and you spent like $20 and you just feel like you bought all bunch of stuff.
I know, a whole bunch of stuff that like my dog's gonna destroy, or I'm just gonna put to the side and never see it again. But essentially it's still an addiction. I'm still choosing it's still a substance. It's just not a substance that's going to, you know, rot out my teeth and, you know, make my body deteriorate at a faster speed. But essentially there's people with shopping addictions who, you know, go bankrupt. And then they go bankrupt and then they put themselves in more debt again and repeat that cycle because they just can't control it. For me, that's extreme, but also for them, I'm sure they're like, well, being on meth is extreme. And I'm like, touche, because it's very extreme. So to every addict, their addiction, their DOC, their drug of choice, whether it be something that counts as like a street drug or just a different type of substance that boosts their serotonin and their cortisol levels, for them, that's their extreme.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like addiction, so we talk about the pathway of pleasure, like whether you're eating a piece of cake to whether you are struggling with a meth addiction, it's the same pathway.
Right.
It's chemically in your brain, that's how it happens. And so once you understand how that happens, then you're able to kind of address that, I guess, or you know, just whatever you do and how you want to fight against that or not. I don't know, because you know, it's not easy.
And I definitely respect the people that like their family comes to them and they're like, you need help, and they're like, I know, and then they like, you know, they fix it. I definitely respect those people, because some of us had to hit rock bottom over and over and over again before we were finally like, I don't want this anymore. And that's scary, and that can feel really like lonely. You feel really alone and really scared when you go through that. So my prayers and my good vibes are with anybody and everybody that's struggling with addiction, whether it be drugs, alcoholism, gambling, you know, whatever it may be. My thoughts are definitely with you. It's not easy.
I want to kind of conclude with some thoughts with having the talk around sobriety and addiction. So I feel like wellness is a word, at least in like the Native community. When I think of wellness, I think of a circle and not so much a linear thing. So in order for me to have a good wellness state of mind or whatever that it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's financial, all of these different components that makes this circle. And if one is not in balance, then then it's not complete. And that's kind of how I see with sobriety, at least for me in my mind. And then also the children and the families that have to see their parents go through addiction and things like that. You know, what are you giving to them? I don't know. I just I think that ties back to some of the things that I've seen growing up. I guess I wasn't necessarily an adolescent. I was more of a young woman, and seeing some of the things that I have witnessed from family members, it leaves a big I don't know, like it's just really hurtful. And it's not anything that I personally did. It was something that was done to me. And you know, how do you address those, you know? And especially if that family member is still active in their addiction. You know, you've seen them go through the cycle, and it's really hard. And I you know, I feel ya. You know, if anybody is going through something similar, I feel you. And you know, you can only do what you can do. You can only control your thoughts and your behaviors, and you know, hopefully you learn from that, and maybe you are able to break those generational curses.
Right. Yeah. And then for the families that are dealing with trying to love an addict, from one addict to you, just know that we love you too.
Yes.
Know that we love you too. And yes, we're aware that we're hurting you, but we also need you to be aware that the addiction that we're going through is so much bigger than us. And when you're active in your addiction, it's hard to see who loves you, and it's hard to see who cares about you. And it's unfortunate, because even if you're just trying to help, you're putting yourself in an environment where you can be lashed out on, and you can be blamed for everything. And maybe you do hold some weight behind the trauma that led that person to that addiction, and that's something that you have to be accountable for if you really want to help that person. But if you're trying to love an addict through their addiction, you got to be patient, but you got to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
If you're not taking care of yourself, you're putting yourself in a position to project onto the addict, which is not going to make it any easier for them. It's just going to add more trauma to them. And though I wish, you know, every addict would have a day where they could say, yeah, I'm 12 years clean, you know, unfortunately that doesn't happen for everybody. So you have to be willing to sit back and figure out how can you love the person that you love who's going through addiction, and it still be healthy for yourself. Because sometimes we don't get clean days. Sometimes we don't get on a sober journey. Sometimes we stay exactly where we want to be at. So
that's deep.
Yeah, sorry for getting all emotional, y'all. No. This is a deep subject for me. And I'm super grateful for my sobriety. And I'm so grateful for my parents for never giving up on me and always allowing me to come home. So that's it. That's all. That's all. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad.
I don't know how to end that, so...
we're on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, right. Google Podcasts.
Let me cue this music up.
We'll see you next week. Yes, I'll be done crying by then.
Again, what Monica said, we are on YouTube. We are on, we're on iHeartRadio, Google, and Apple Podcast. We'll be back next week, and just be on the lookout for some of our promotional stuff. So... thanks for watching.
Thank you.